Okay, so now we need to create some interaction between the player and that ellipse that's bouncing around. So we basically want when the person clicks on the ellipse, 1 gets added to their score. If they miss the ellipse, they lose a life. Once the life gets down to 3, it goes to the game over page, which we still need to create also. So we'll start by bringing in our score and our lives so that we can see that happening, and then we'll add to our game over page. So in order to add these, we're going to need a couple of variables. So if we go right up to the top of our script again to where our variables are, we're going to add a variable for, another integer variable for score, and we will add an integer variable for lives. In our void setup, we're then going to add our values for those. So if we can say score is equal to 0 when the game starts, and lives is equal to 3 when the game starts. So again, these variable values can change depending on what you would like to happen, but 3 is, a general way to start a game with lives. 3 chances to miss the ellipse. Right, so now we need to add some script that will work out whether the person has clicked on the target or off the target. So we're going to come down to our input area where we have this mouse pressed function. So we have our function at the moment if we're on scene 0, which is our GUI, and we also created this little function or this little if statement to say if we're on scene 2, then go back to the GUI. We need to create one that says if we're on scene 1. So in between these two, I'm going to make a bit of space and go if scene is equal to 1. And inside this if statement, we're going to put some script that detects whether or not the user has clicked on the ellipse or not. So we're going to create a float variable, and we're just going to call it d for distance. And we're going to work out the distance between the center of the ellipse, which we know is x and y, and where the mouse is on the x-axis and where the mouse is on the y-axis. So this will now hold a distance. So we know that from the center of the circle to the edge is 50 because our ellipse is 100 wide and 100 high. So we know that if distance d is less than 50, then we've actually clicked on our ellipse because it means our mouse is inside that circle. If it's more than 50, then we're outside the circle. So we can create an easy if statement here that just says if d is less than 50, the score is going to be whatever it is plus 1. Again, just make a bit of space here for readability. Oops, and we should have an open curly bracket there and a closed curly bracket there. Okay, so if d is less than 50, add 1 to the score. We also want to say if it's anything other than that. So if the distance is more than 50, then minus 1 from the lives. So we can just say else lives equals lives minus 1. We can close that. Now brackets are always really important in any object-oriented coding, so we need to double check that we've got our if statement opening and closing in the right place. We have another if statement opening and closing, and we have an else statement opening and closing. Once we're sure that those are in the right place, we can come over and run our game. Now we should find that if I'm clicking within the ellipse, nothing happens. But when I click outside of the ellipse, something should happen. At the moment, we haven't actually set it up to do anything, and we can't actually see anything. So the score is possibly going up, the lives are going down, but we haven't actually told it what to do with those values, and we haven't told it to display those values. So over here in our if statement underneath lives, I'm going to create another if statement here saying if lives is equal to 0, oops, curly bracket, then we want scene to equal 2, because that's what's going to send us to our game over screen. And then close that if statement as well. So now we should at least find that when I click within the circle, my game runs normally. I still can't see the score, but it's not ending. When I click outside, I eventually end up back at my first game screen. Now we should be at a game over screen, but our game over screen at the moment doesn't have anything on it. It just gets sent automatically to this my first game because I was clicking. So we can now add something to that game over scene to see that it works. So if I scroll right down to the bottom here, I have my void game over scene. I'm just going to add a background in here of black. We can choose any color we want. I'm just going to put it in there black so I can see it. And we'll press play and just double check that it is going where it needs to go. I have my GUI scene. I have my game scene. When I click, it comes back here and it comes to my game over scene where I can write a game over message. When I click once in my game over scene, it should take me back to my GUI scene. So we'll have a look at that later as well. Okay, so what's going to be really helpful here is if we can actually see our score and we can actually see our lives, it's going to be easier to know whether it's what's going on with our code, but it also makes it easier for our player to know what's going on. So in our game play function here, I just want to have some text on my screen. Oops. So underneath my background, I'm going to write a couple of lines of code. So first I'm going to choose my text color. So I'm going to say fill, and I'm going to make my text color black, but you can use whatever color you want. And then I'm going to say text, and the text that I want to be displayed is the word score. And next to that, I want it to display the value of the score variable. And I would like to position that at probably 30 and 30. Oops. In the top corner, left-hand corner of the screen. I would also like to be able to see my lives. So I'm going to say text. And I want the word lives to appear, followed by the value of the variable lives. This time I'm going to bring it down also at 30, so say about 130, and we'll see what this looks like at the moment. So I have my first game. You can see I have a score and I have lives. When I click on the purple ellipse, I get a point, and when I click off, I lose lives, and eventually I end up at my first game screen. Now, one of the things that happened when I first ran my game is that it was registering that first click as one of my lives. So the way that I can remedy that is just to make sure that my value of lives is one higher than I actually want it to be. So now when I press play, my lives start at 3, just spelt wrong. My score goes up and I have 3 chances to miss before I come to my black game over screen.